the body of the letter and how to organize the body of the letter. This we will be discussing, right? So, in details, in the first class we have discussed about the marking criteria, right? Like what we have in the marking criteria, the first class, and in the second class we discussed about different types of writing purposes. Like we have referral letters, we have discharge letter, we have transfer letter, we have update letter, and so on. If you want to ask any question, please feel free to ask me before we can proceed. So, if you don't have any question, so we'll be moving on toward the body of the letter. Like today, I'm going to discuss two case notes with you. I already have shared with you the case notes in the group. So, quickly, we'll be discussing that cases. The first case is from the OET official website that we'll be discussing. We'll be using here for the, you can say, our class. So I hope you can see my screen now.
Not yet, sir.
Okay, in a moment. So now you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
So now I'll just create it. Okay. So basically, okay, in a moment, please, there are some other candidates for joining. So basically, over here, if you can see that as we discussed in the last classes, that whenever you see the case notes, you should go to this part.
सर आप वीडियो रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं इसमें?
Yes, sir. So you should
Thank
go to this part. First of all, let's say this is a writing task. And here, if you can see that you need to identify who is the recipient. So this is the recipient. So the first question to the purpose is clear to us that we are writing this letter to this person. And why we are writing, we need to read this line and we can see that this is the reason of writing. For further management of Mrs. Sharma's sugar level. So what we can infer after reading this introduction that she is having maybe uncontrolled sugar levels, right? We don't know for sure that the patient is being diagnosed with the diabetes or not. But at the moment, at least we would have an idea. The patient has uncontrolled sugar levels, right? Anyhow, so for the optimization of her sugar level, we are writing this letter. So the purpose of this letter at this moment is that we are writing this letter to the endocrinologist, right? The purpose of letter is the patient has, you can say, maybe like this is the purpose. I will write it at the end, but still, the patient for the management of her sugar levels. So we do know this thing at the moment. At the moment, we just do know this thing that we are writing to this person, and this is the reason of writing. So with reference to that reason of writing, we start reading the case notes from top to bottom. Okay. So first of all, just a minute, please. Sorry. First of all, if you can see over here that like this is something I would like to read over here that patient is not diabetic, right? So now I have a clear idea that patient has diabetes mellitus and is uncontrolled. Let's say, but we started in the case note with reference to that. So age of the patient is critical. Address can be ignored. Social background like married with 3 children and grandchildren. Uh, it's not that important. Retired clerical worker, yes, it's very important. Many relative with diabetes type 2. At the moment, the patient is already diagnosed. This is a risk factor. We can be writing this thing in priority when the patient is suspected case of diabetes. But at the moment, the patient is diagnosed case from 1994. The patient is having diabetes, and now we are writing in 2014, I believe, right? So the patient has long history of diabetes mellitus. Anyhow, so you can see the family history is not that significant in this case. Retired clerical worker show the sedentary lifestyle. It is significant, but the family history is not that significant. Okay, just a minute, please. So the family history is not that significant. Moving on, nil else significant fine. Family history not significant, no impression, it's not important. Allergic to penicillin, allergies are always important. But according to the importance of these allergies, we can add it above or below. It depends, right? Menopause, no importance. Never smoke, nil alcohol, not that important. No formal exercise, yes, it's very important. Now you can see that he is already on the medicine. Like currently he's taking this medicine. He's already on some medicine. For example, metformin, 2 noctates she's taking. This is the medicine that he's been taking. So these are important medicine, right? First time she presented to your clinic, at that time she was concerned about her blood sugar level. So the most important things over here is the BSL, and last eye checkup was 2012, so no complication. Important. BMI, you can see that it's I believe not so obese, not overweight. It's fine, and it's steady. This is also important. Important. And you can see over here, apart from the little bit high blood pressure, everything is important. So for the BP, you had given this medicine. So right now, you will see the same things with reference to selection. Again, in this pathology that you had ordered in the last visit, we have significant thing over here. So with reference to that, you stain the medicines, right? Previously, if you can see, previously he was taking metformin 500 mg to noctate. So from 2 noctate to 1 BD, that is being done. And there are some medicine that has been changed, right? That's remain the same, okay? But only this medicine was changed, right? And there was some medicine that was added for the cholesterol. Again, he presented again, sugar improved, pathology requested fasting and blood sugar. Pathology report received. Now patient has the high blood sugar level, right? Okay. So this was a selection range. So importantly, how would we write down the introduction of this letter? So we would write it down, like the introduction of this letter. Just a moment. We discuss about the BSL level. Initially, patient presented to my clinic on this date with a concern that her blood sugar level are high, as her blood sugar level was on this level. Afterward, you will write it down. Consequently, let's say, uh, few blood tests, including, or we can directly write down. Consequently, which reveal, then we can write it down. HbA1c of.
Sir, we cannot hear you properly.
Sorry, can you hear me? GFR of this. Here we write it down.
No, sir, we cannot hear you.
Sorry,
There's distortion at your end.
we will write it down. Consequently, some pathology tests were ordered, which revealed, then we can write down the values of HbA1c, GFR, and all the investigations that are important, right? Then we can say for that reason, her medicine regime was changed from, let's say, blah to blah, right? So now if you can see in organization, uh, what we have done till this point, I will explain it to you. So we started this letter with the risk factor of the patient, which include the profession of the patient, which include the lifestyle of the patient, and important negative. This was the first point in the body of the letter that coupled with the blood sugar level that was high. After that blood sugar level, we have mentioned about the pathology. After the pathology, we have some high values. We mentioned the change in medicine. Now, till this point, we have discussed. So, in the next paragraph, you can just write down the minor improvement.
So why is the interrupted, sir?
We just write down the minor improvement, and after the minor improvement, we would write it down about the
Sir, we cannot hear you properly.
I would see that there is a minor improvement, and then we have the last visit where we can find the high range of blood sugar level, right? So this was your organization of the notes. So now I will repeat things for you. In the introduction, we have written about the uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, medicine, and request of for the optimization. After the introduction, in the next body paragraph, we mention about the risk factor, started from the risk factor, then the BSL values, then the change in medicine, then again, we can say, sorry, then the pathology reports and change in medicine, right? And at the end, with minor improvement, we have the fasting blood sugar level, right? Now, in this way, we will organize. So, as you can see, the body of the letter can be organized in this way. If you have any question, please feel free to ask me. So, हम close करेंगे. So, how can we close this letter? Let's say after that, you will write down the conclusion in view of the above, right? I am referring Mrs. Sharma to your diabetic unit, as it was mentioned the case, for the best management of her uncontrolled sugar levels, right? So then I will write it down. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any further queries, right? And at the end, you would write down, in this case, yours sincerely. If you have written the comma up above, you'll write over here. If no, then we should not write down over here. Line leaving 1 to 2 line, doctor or your profession. You can write your name as well. So one more thing about the address part that we have not discussed about layout. On the top left corner, we can write down the date, or let's say the last visit date, whatever the date it would be, 1/6, let's say 14. And this will be your exam date in the real exam. Then we can leave one line and write the name of the doctor or the person to whom you are writing. Then, if we have the designation, then the address, whatever the address, let's say uh, diabetic unit, Newtown Hospital, Newtown. There should not be any comma over here, and you can put full stop over here. Then, leaving one line, we can write down regarding patient name. Let's say Mrs. Sharma. Sorry, here we can add full name, Mrs. Priya Sharma. And then we can write down the age or date of birth, whatever is given. Then leaving one line, and we can write down the name of the doctor, dear doctor, and his or her name, right? You will write down the second name over here. And if you have put comma over here, so when you close the letter, we will write down yours sincerely. If we don't have the name of the doctor, like we just write down the endocrinologist, in this case, we can write down dear doctor, and here you can write down faithfully. So this is the layout of the letter. So I hope I had made myself clear to. Now, this is the letter of discharge that I will be discussing with you. So again, when we see the case notes, we will go to the bottommost part, and you need to ask yourself a simple question: to whom you are writing this letter? Sorry, the primary physician, right? Just a minute, please. इसे पढ़ाएगा इसे पढ़ाएगा Okay. Basically, if you can see over here, we are writing this letter to a primary care physician, right? So, as we discussed in the few classes, that when you are writing this letter to a primary care physician, there are certain things that you should keep in mind. So, what we can see, primary care physician, and this is a discharge letter. So, we will start in the case note from top to bottom. This is patient name, not important. Discharge date. Now, the discharge date is important. Admission date at the moment is question mark. Admitted with schizophrenia. Past medical history, not important for the GP. Social background, at the moment, it's not important. At the moment, it's not important. Right? Then you can see on this date, it's written that patient self admitted. Now, this is important. Now, we will look back. If the patient is writing, like the patient is being written like if the patient was, patient self admitted himself or herself. Now, the admission detail is also important, right? And his history is very important. Most of the candidate miss this history. Remember that in this particular letter, if you miss this history, I believe that your letter will not be qualified. The reason is this is quite tricky. The admission date is 1/3, and a day before, just a day before, the patient was admitted. As it was written under the shadow of the social background, so most of the candidates believe that as we are writing back to the GP, that's why social background is not important. They won't read that, but it's a little tricky. Admission did like was self-admitted. Last cocaine use is important, right? And now we can see. Just a minute, please. I need to add a candidate again. Now, last admission detail was important. Became important actually. Admission detail. This detail because of the last cocaine use, right? And self-admitted is also important. Patient was non-compliant with medication. GP already know. Okay. Mentioning the symptom or not, it's a question mark. Most of the candidates in the discharge letter, they make this mistake. They explain the symptoms. Those symptoms might be important for the maybe the specialist who has treated this patient, maybe psychiatrist. The symptom would be important for the psychiatrist. But now we can see that if we can see that uh, this case, this symptom might not be important. Okay, to explain them, we can write it down the symptom in a brief way. And the next page, we can see again patient has improved. Nursing management is important. This is important. This is important. We can say about the about how to write down this letter. So now I will share the screen with you. Over here, again on the top left corner, you will write down the name of the doctor to whom you're writing, his designation, let's say primary care physician, his address, the way it has been given. Then we can write down a date, right? Let's say it was, I don't remember the date, but let's say it was 2/8/16. You need to see the discharge date. That was the day you were writing this letter. After that, you can see that we can write down the regarding, like patient name, Mrs. Bethany, I think Taylor. We can write it down, and here we can write down the age or date of birth if it's given. Leaving one line, we can write down dear doctor, then his name, right? Put comma. Afterward, now we will write down the introduction. So in this particular case, you can see the case notes in the group as well. In this particular case, I can just write down I'm writing regarding, let's say, the patient name who has responded well to the treatment of uh, schizophrenia, I believe, and is now being discharged back to your care for follow up. Now you can see that the main concern has been addressed, that she has been responding well to the treatment for follow up. Two things of the discharge letter is being cleared. We can also write down the introduction of this letter a little differently. I'm writing this letter of discharge regarding the name of the patient who has shown signs of improvement after she has been treated on the line of schizophrenia. I would appreciate if you could follow this patient after her discharge. So these are two conventions to write down the introduction. Both would be correct as long as we have mentioned the sign of improvement and follow-up management. Now the point is what we write down in the next paragraph. So in the next paragraph, if we write down initially she presented to my clinic with hallucination, I believe it would be wrong. So we can just write down Mrs. XYZ who admitted herself or self-admission with features of schizophrenia, right? Consequently, she was treated with, I think, the name of the medicine, Respiridon, right? To which she responded well, and she had not had any. Then you can write down the symptoms, whatever symptom was, right? At the end of this paragraph, you can write down, please note that her last cocaine was a day before her admission, right? Then we can write down the in term of nursing management. In term of her nursing management, let's say she had been treated on, yeah, she had been assessed for the psychosis or behavioral changes, whatever that. So at the time of discharge, at the time of discharge, she has shown a good progress. So I would appreciate, therefore, I would appreciate if you could make sure the compliance of the medicine with the patient as she can decompensate, right? Okay. Then we can write on a discharge plan. I am discharging this patient with blah blah medication, Respiridon. It has to be given in blah blah potency. And the last line, please arrange a follow up with mental health clinic. Right? At the end, you could write it down again. If you have any further queries, please do not hesitate to contact me. So, the summary of this letter would be introduction. In the intro, we can write down patient response to the treatment of schizophrenia plus follow up. That would be in the introduction. The second thing that in the left body you can write down in summary, like summarize the features of schizophrenia. In this way, like she presented to my clinic with feature of schizophrenia, then we can write down about the medicine or the management that you had given and the improvement the patient has shown. Afterward, like improvement can be written that she had not shown any sign of, let's say, psychosis and blah blah blah, whatever was written in the first page or second paragraph. Like there was no sign of blah blah. We can write it down, and then we can explain the nursing management. Right, nursing management can be written in detail, and then the discharge plan along with conclusion. Then you can close again in the same way. So this was a brief overview of the discharge letter. If you would like to ask anything, or I would like to summarize again. Introduction. We will rephrase that patient has responded to treatment in a way that she has been she has shown progress, right? And now we need a follow-up treatment. In the next paragraph, we can write down she presented with features of. In the next paragraph, we can mention the features of schizophrenia. Consequently, patient treated was treated with blah blah medication. Okay. Then sign of improvement patient is having. Then the sign of improvement patient having. Now we can explain the sign like blah blah things were improved. After that, we can write down about the nursing management. Now this is something is important. You can just bit explain it, not in detail. Then we would write it down in conclusion. The patient was improving, and we had we like you can write down there was no significant thing important negative can be written, and then discharge plan in detail, right? Explain the discharge plan using the language skills, and then sign off statements, and at the end we can write down yours sincerely, right? And your name. So as the question you asked, that how would we know the points are important for the specialist or the problem or not? So to answer your question, sir, it's a something. If you're writing this letter to the endocrinologist for suspected diabetes, uncontrolled diabetes, for suspected diabetes or for uncontrolled diabetes. So let's say retired teacher is important, right? Retired teacher is important for the endocrinologist as well, and the patient has uncontrolled diabetes because he was taking this medicine and it was not under control. So we have to include all the risk factors to identify the reason, because you can see the
Yes,
patient
sir.
was not
So,
doing any
so
exercise.
basically, it depends on the knowledge
Prior
regarding
knowledge, it's not something that you must have a deep knowledge, just a basic level of knowledge, like GP
like
level or
that disease.
SC
For
level
example, in
knowledge.
diabetes, and about similar in schizophrenia, they
Yes, sir. And even this in this case, or schizophrenia, yes,
it does depend on the
you must have a brief idea.
oh,
Hello.
yes, sir.
Yeah, you must have an idea about, so basic idea about the problem. So I hope this thing is clear to you.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me,
Sure.
sir.
Hello. Yes, ma'am. If you have any question.
Sir, will you mention that? Yes, sir. Are we going to mention the date of admission along with patient was self-admitted?
Yes, in this case, yes, because it was self-admitted. So we do write down the date of admission. Otherwise, if it was not self-admission, the GP would have referred you. Then it might not be the important issue, right? Anything else?
Sir.
Any question that you want to ask?
Yes.
Sir,
Yes, please.
in this case, how to expand the notes you said in the last think here?
How to what?
Expand.
I didn't get your question, ma'am.
No, how to expand about the nursing care?
About what? Nursing management.
Uh,
Hello? As you asked the question about the nursing management, Dr. Nuzad, so we can write it down. Let's say in terms of nursing management, she was assessed for the signs of psychosis and was also redirected from the renal. In addition to that, it was also ensured that she should be compliant with her medicine. Like that, we can explain the nursing management, right?